So today on the media track, we're going to have a multitude of panelists and panels. Pretty much we're going to focus on the evolution of media and entertainment, its distribution, changing consumption patterns, efficiencies, and how the industry is really evolving. As open panelists, we have Jesper Knudsen, from Vice President, General Manager from NDS, now a Cisco company, and Chris Wagner from Neulion. They're both partners of Globecomm. Chris's company, Neulion, is a thought leader providing over-the-top services, very focused on the TV Anywhere, on sports and college athletics. And we're very valuable customer of ours. Jesper's been working in software solutions for media applications for many years now. And what we'd like to do is just provide some insights in what you see as the evolution of media distribution, monetization, how social media is changing things, and your insights in those areas.
Great. Thanks, Brian. My name is Chris Wagner. I co-founded Neulion with Ron Nunn, who's in the back of the room, and two others. We're a Long Island company based close to Bethpage, actually coming up on our 10th year. And we built a business and launched our first over-the-top digital network back in 2007, when a lot of the big media companies were trying to figure out exactly how to make money distributing video on the internet. We focused our business primarily on live content. Just to give you an idea of size, we did about 40,000 live sports events last year to just about every kind of device that you can think of, from game consoles to smartphones to tablets to all the connected devices to apps that we've built on Samsung, LG, and Panasonic. Primarily our focus has been around creating an experience for the fan. We get hired by most of the big U.S. sports leagues. So as customers, we have the NFL, National Hockey League, NBA, UFC. We have about 200 colleges where we partner with the athletic department to create a digital distribution platform for them. And then we also have a TV Everywhere business that includes companies like Univision, Rogers Cable, Shaw Communications. We're the same thing. So we're a service that we're a B2B company. We get hired by these big rights holders, really from the fan experience back. You know, initially creating an experience for a consumer with their content. So they produce the content, they being the NFL or UFC, and I'll give you some examples. They market a service, and they use our platform to monetize that video. So live video, 40,000 live events, plus about 300 linear channels that get distributed. How that gets monetized is in a number of different ways. I think that what has changed over the last couple of years is many of the big content rights holders look for markets to get into. International markets are great for U.S. content rights holders. You know, the NFL is a good example. So Sunday Ticket, you would watch on DirecTV here in the United States. The NFL hired Neulion to deliver a Sunday Ticket-like service. We think it's a little bit better. Anywhere in the world. So if you're in London or Australia or anywhere and you're interested in watching every live NFL game on any kind of device, watching the NFL linear channel on any kind of device, watch the NFL Red Zone channel, so 2 channels plus all their live games, that's a service that the NFL hired us for, and that service is a subscription-based service, which I think we're probably in our 4th year, Ron, I think, with the NFL. So that gets marketed by the NFL. The product, if you go to NFL.com, you actually see right on the main navigation of their website a thing called Game Pass. And that Game Pass product, depending on your IP address, you can buy if you're outside the States. If you're in the States, they'll position other products, which we also have built for the NFL, a fantasy product called NFL Rewind. If you're interested in the audio broadcast out of all the stadiums, I'm a Redskin fan, right? So Frank and Sonny out of Washington, D.C., I'll take over any broadcaster on NFL or CBS because they're incredibly biased and they never say anything bad about the Redskins. So that product I can get. It's true. Yeah. But we got a great quarterback now, so we might be back. So that Audio Pass product is a subscription product. So what Neulion does is as these services get marketed to consumers by the NFL, they end up on a landing page where they buy it, right? So the consumer puts in their credit card. There's a pay flow that happens. There's a provisioning of that user because the NFL wants to sell packages very differently. It could be I'm just a Redskin fan, or I want to buy a league pass and watch all the games, or I just want to watch the playoffs and the Super Bowl. So how things get monetized and merchandised, we help them with that. And as those transactions happen, the credit card processing is actually done by Neulion. The provisioning is done by Neulion. All the signal capture we do. So our NOC right out here in Plainview is the primary operations center for managing all the signals that either get captured from a satellite or they could be fiber to us, or we can actually take things over the public internet. So in college case, a lot of the video that gets backhauled to us actually comes over the public internet and then transcoded into all these different formats. So that story I did on the NFL is the same story you can apply to the NBA and UFC and the colleges and these TV everywhere businesses.
Chris, maybe what you could do is also illustrate the growth that you're seeing right now and the demand, and then how social media is actually interacting in this market space.
Okay. So these are all digital networks that have significant growth. The NFL, actually, when we started, you could watch standard definition, fixed bit rate streaming video on Yahoo. This is back in probably 2008, around there. And they made the leap to really say to the fan, and that video was free, by the way. So they said to the fan, how about HD video that gets delivered adaptively? So regardless of your internet connection, everybody probably is familiar with adaptive streaming now, but back then they weren't. Adapt to an experience that you're going to be happy with, right? So depending on your bandwidth, you're going to get good or poor experience. So that was a paid service that they put in front of a free service. So get it free in SD, which was a fixed bit rate of probably around 600 to 800 kilobits, or pay for it in an HD adaptive bit rate, somewhere between 150 to 250 bucks, depending on which package that you picked. That business has grown significantly for them and for all these digital networks because, as we all know, I have 4 kids, and they're very digitally connected. I have 2 daughters that live in Manhattan. They don't even have a cable connection, right? It's just an internet connection. Appointment-based TV is going away, other than sports, right? And your ability to watch on-demand and live programming on any kind of device, and more importantly, how you interact, which I think is Brian's point, has really driven fast adoption by consumers of watching live video on digital, because the video quality now is excellent. It is all in HD. We were doing some things with the NBA and the NHL on a game console with Microsoft at 60 frames, right, a second, and at a bit rate of 4.5 to 6 megabits of video, right? So the quality's like, wow. And then you add into that the ability to chat with your friends on all these different devices, or connect in your social media networks. The Big Ten Network's a customer, and one of the things we did a couple years ago is we integrated in this BTN Connect, which is a curated tweets that actually show up in their linear channel, which we simulcast and deliver out on all these devices. So if you're one of their affiliates, if you're Comcast or Cablevision, or you download this app for free. It's called BTN To Go. Runs on mobile and tablet. You log in through your cable satellite affiliation. You're already paying them, so you get it for free. And that experience is the same experience, it's the same video that you would see off the set-top box, but it's now on all kinds of different devices, and it also includes a lot of live events they can't put in the broadcast window because you only have 24 hours. And it also includes a way for a BTN fan to connect with other fans. You know, if you're a big fan of Michigan or a big fan of Penn State or what have you, tweets get collected, they get curated, you can follow trends, you know, so you have all this stuff going on, right? And that's where I think the big change has been with broadcast television, which historically has been a one-way conversation with a consumer. Now with digital, you have this highly interactive, you're doing multiple things. UFC, we have 4 camera angles that a fan can pick from, 5 different audio streams that a fan can pick from. You can vote on each round as you're watching and changing your audio and video. And you pay $55 for that to watch on digital, or you could pay $55 to watch on broadcast TV, right? And there's still more buyers on the broadcast side, but the digital businesses across all these different companies I've mentioned are growing at a much faster rate than what they have seen on traditional broadcast.
Thank you, Chris. And I think it just goes to pay with demographics. It's really changing. As you get younger and younger in the demographic profile, I mean, the consumption patterns are really moving in a different direction.
Yeah, this demo was really not the same. I mean, I'm in your demo, right? So it's interesting that you're right. I mean, you have a consumer base that's very multitask. I mean, if you look at Major League Baseball, I think the average demo on broadcast is actually north of 50, right? So and they've done a great job also in creating a digital experience for fans because that's where everything's going.
Right. Jesper, from NDS's perspective, you've been working with pay TV operators globally, and as part of Cisco, building infrastructure for IP. What do you see happening in this industry?
Well, I think really it's not. First, I should thank Chris. You know, I travel a lot in Europe, so we actually use a lot of. I use consume video through the product, but I think generally it's the same perspective we see. We're not as focused on sports only. We do build a platform for over the top as well as part of our Videoscape offering. We have an end-to-end offering, content protection, all the way through CMS and encoding and all that. We're seeing, I guess, is that the over the top is really moving away from being a niche product to more of a mainstream product. Everyone needs to build a more solid platform than what has been there in the past, and that goes for both pay TV operators, but also the broadcasters themselves. As Chris rightly pointed out, it leads to new monetization schemes, good and bad, right? There's new splits occurring because when UFC delivers everything over the top, the pay TV operator is no longer there, so part of the promotion goes away, and there's new splits to be figured out. For UFC and the sports, it's less of an issue. For mainstream programming, that still gets significant parts of their payment through carriage fees. It's a little bit more of an issue. How do those splits work? So I think a lot of the focus is on where are the additional sources of revenue. There's no doubt that the online space is a much more personalized experience than the typical pay TV experience. So it's much more about how do we do individual advertising? Is there an upsell? And again, I've been in this industry 15 years now, and we've probably spoken about advertising for that long without seeing any real progress being made. The advertising industry is not not the quickest to change in the world, and there's some really good monetization schemes that's worked for a long time, even though we all know the Nielsen ratings are inaccurate, but we still use it to distribute money. I think the over-the-top experience forces new thinking in advertising. We've seen it with online. However, we still don't see the CPMs in the online video as we do in live broadcast. I think some of that has to change, especially because we feel that the advertising is getting more targeted. That's one additional source of revenue. that all of a sudden can come in, and then the splits has to be made between whoever is involved in that. I think there's other things that we're seeing needs to be sorted out. So as all these online experiences come, one model is what Chris just spoke about, is that each content owner gets their own app. What we see working closely with the pay TV operators is they're also creating their apps, and there's this there's a battleground between who controls the experience, right? And the reason for that battleground is also who controls the revenue flow, right? Who controls the subscriber? So if I'm a Cablevision subscriber, if I'm within the home, I can watch everything within their iPad app. Now, if I go outside on the street and I want to watch Major League Baseball, I have to sign up for a separate app. So I think we're going to see some of that change over time, and I think those guys have to work closer together, or maybe even some of the sports breaks away and delivers everything on a standalone basis. I don't know if how many of you read what Jimmy Dolan was saying in his interview yesterday or the day before, where he was commenting that they might be reduced to they might choose to not be a pay TV operator but only carry the broadband, right? So there is also movements where some of these pay TV guys are saying, with all the carriage fees that we're doing, if everything over the top is free, why don't we just provide the pipe, and then whoever delivers the content can do that directly. Now, as a consumer, though, I don't think most consumers we see are not interested in having 50 individual relationships with various broadcasters and 50 different apps to browse around in order to find content. So with all this content being thrown over the top, the very powerful brands like Major League Baseball, NFL, HBO can have their own apps, but it's difficult for the smaller broadcasters and more niche programming to be heard in that sort of a scenario. Most consumers as well, I think, prefers an aggregator. So that's the balance that we're seeing at the moment, trying to be balanced out, and they're trying to figure out what the consumer experience should be going forward. It used to be, when I started in this industry, and we talked about guides for the pay TV industry, and you had 200 channels to sap through. If you sap through all the channels, spent a couple of seconds on each channel, by the time you got through each of them, right, you can start over because new shows had started. So search recommendation becomes increasingly important in this space. And I think that's one of the areas that's a lot of focus on, where we go over the top. How do we recommend content? We haven't even talked about user-generated content in this space to augment the more commercial content. So as we're creating these experience, the user experience, recommendation, content protection are some of the key things we see our customers focused on.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I think a lot of it also, it's kind of, we've been talking about it for a long time, but it is coming. And it's being generated by consumers. I don't know experiences from everybody in the room, but in my household specifically, the TV does not go on that often anymore. And the iPads and even the iTouches are used quite often. And Amazon Prime my bill keeps going up. People are buying movies, and it's changing in a pretty dramatic manner.
What sports, right? I mean, you got Netflix, Apple TV. Yeah. Personally, on my Cablevision list of channels, maybe I watch 5. Not that many, right? I actually would prefer to have a relationship with all the content owners versus an aggregator. Don't really need an aggregator. I'm an HBO guy, right? I can watch HBO Go. I much prefer that digitally. I love Game of Thrones. I can watch. I can go back and I can look at old episodes. I can have somebody pop up and give me, right out of the book why this important subject is important. You can't do that on, regular broadcast television. So personally, I prefer to have a relationship with all the content owners. I really don't need an aggregator because they're going to throw 200 channels at me. And I really don't want to pay for 200 channels. I'd really rather pick the things that I want to watch and sign up for that. That's where the space is going. And, you ask younger people, do they need a cable aggregator? They don't, right? They don't watch appointment TV. You know, they're watching everything they need off an Apple TV device. Now you got Chromecast, you know, which is going to plug into an HDMI port, and you're going to throw things right up on there, right? So there is this long tail that consumers are adopting, and other than sports, right? They're choosing what they want to watch when they want to watch, and they really don't need, you know, an aggregator. The real thing that an aggregator brings to a content provider is marketing, you know, because they own the subscriber. So how they market to you, and they own that relationship B2C. But even that's changing. I mean, HBO has well over 15 million downloads now of HBO Go, and they're getting a closer and closer relationship with that consumer. Big Ten Network and ESPN, right? They've been on digital platforms for years now, and they're forming a tighter relationship with the consumer. And there is a business model there because they're paying, the operator is paying for those digital packages because they know that's where the fan base is moving.
Yeah, I think I see it a little bit differently. I agree that for a lot of the big sports content that has a lot of value, you can go directly. I'd say, though, there's a couple of things. The average, I always say we need to be really careful using ourselves as examples on how the average American chooses content. There's a lot of people in Middle America, and there's a lot of people in different age groups that are not necessarily looking to have a separate technology sign up with 5 different companies or 10 different companies in order to consume content. I think the aggregators has 2 roles. One is actually procuring the rights, and we can always agree or disagree with the packaging. I think that will change also in terms of how people sign up, and I think that will be more individualized. But in many ways, a lot of these content or a lot of these content aggregators also provide you with a technology platform around your home. I think if people start consuming content on individual devices, the connected home is quite important, right? It's quite important you have a seamless experience where you can take your content from the main TV through the bedroom to your iPad. And I think I'll put it this way. You can try to call NBC if you're having issues with how their content comes out on an iPad and see what sort of call center support they have, or Samsung for that matter. And I think I can pretty much guarantee you how that's going to go. So there's a couple of roles the content aggregators play that also goes to the technology platform, goes to customer support, etc. Having said that, I think clearly there's going to be a demand on content aggregators and broadcasters that go directly on a much more individualized experience, both in terms of channels that are being provided, but also in terms of, as I said, recommendation, data analysis, and providing a more unique viewing experience for the viewer that's actually consuming the content.
Are there any questions from the audience or any insights that anybody would like to share?
Let's say to David Little, Content Yet David. Just a question. You actually touched on a consumer-generated product still out there. And on the sports side, are we seeing the flow down? I mean, we've gone from, professional sports to the college, Division II, Division III having their own thing. Are we seeing that flow down still to the AAU level and to, high school and whatever? And my question is, how do they ever generate any real revenue?
Yeah, well, here on Long Island, we actually do 600 some high school games in combination with MSG Varsity, which is a Cablevision company. So MSG Varsity is our customer. They actually get the kids involved in the production of live sports, on-demand content.
Talent and production.
Exactly right. So they do some of their own. They kind of have it tiered. So they'll have a big high school game where they'll roll the truck in, and it's a 3-camera shoot with a switcher. Right. The next tier down would be they'll use a pack, and they'll put those packs on the field, and they'll pull the video using a cellular-based backhaul off the field, still with a switcher, but maybe a single camera. And then the third is maybe a stationary camera, no switcher, and it's just a feed right off the field. Now, as a Cablevision subscriber, you get all that for free because Jimmy wants you to keep paying that cable bill, right? So he's finding ways to get more and more content. And that's an over-the-top authenticated service that high school kids are involved in producing, and Cablevision actually subsidizes those schools for equipment and things like that to get them involved in the production of the content. That's high school. We just did the same thing with Bright House in Florida. So Bright House bought the rights to Florida sports, Florida football primarily, and next week we'll be launching a similar high school service. So you see a lot of localization around video content, both generated from the user but also generated by a school or a network. College, same way. Hofstra is a customer, but so is LSU and Big Ten Network, right? And being able to take an iPhone and do a live event off that iPhone and fast publish either an interview or a live event, fast publish that back so it can then be transcoded and pushed back out to any kind of device, and then decided whether you're going to roll an ad or put a paywall in front of it. That's happening too. And that content production, because it's getting easier and easier to produce content, you have more and more of it, which then makes it very interesting for fans that want to follow either that entertainment or that sport. They're getting more stuff, and it's deeper, right? There's much more there than you'd ever be able to put in a 24/7 broadcast.
This is happening. I think what's not happening yet, and what I think will be the next wave, and I think will be interesting, is I think you'll start to see, as the content production cost goes down further and further, with the quality of cameras, etc. I think you can start to see almost schools channels, right? So if you could subscribe to your kids' high school sports, right, and get to watch your own kids, I think people would pay for that over the top. And I think, so yeah.
I do, but the end of it is when my kids are out of school, I'm not going to pay for that. So now you have to regenerate your audience.
And that's why the way it has to be, right? It has to be there has to be almost no production cost and almost no distribution cost. So you'll get whatever subscriptions there is for the people that are in school, and that's going to be the churn. You'll have a few alumni people that keep watching their school to follow.
You'd be surprised. It's a big alumni base that follows that.
But on an individual school level, the revenue is not going to be huge. But if all the schools do it, and if someone provides that platform, that's when the revenue adds up and there's money there. But the distribution cost and content production cost has to be really low.
Don't hold the base.
Yeah.
Great.
So, Jesper, Chris, really appreciate your time. I think the key message out of this is this space is evolving pretty dramatically. The business models are changing, consumption patterns are changing, and it's kind of a brave new world. It's going to regenerate, and there's a lot of work to be done.